A lipless bait's always good in early spring. Of course, today, as you can see, we got a lot of wind and we got dirty water, from all the rain and snow melt, and throwing the old red colored ripping wrap. Of course, number one, red's always a good color in the spring, but it also shows up real good in this dirty water. He eat my ripping wrap. You talk about one that ate it. Look at that right there. That's one thing about a ripping wrap. It's got that real subtle side to side action. Look how fat that dude is. But this is a great lipless bait when this water's cold. And they love that red, especially today. It's getting cloudy, windy. We got a cold front coming in. And red's always a good color in the spring, but it's also good when you got a cold front. Everybody thinks lipless baits are mostly a grass bait, but they're really an excellent bait to fish early in the spring around rocks. And there's a lot of different ways you can fish them. When you throw up shallow on these rocky banks, I'll usually start out reeling pretty quick, pretty fast, and just get the bait to tick in the top. But then as I come off, I'll actually slow the bait down and even sometimes pause it and allow it to fall back and kind of yo-yo it back to the boat. A lot of times that's a good way to get a strike. But another thing you can do is if you can kind of use your line size. I've got this one on like 14-pound Suffix fluorocarbon, but you can actually go up in line size to lift the bait up if you're fishing around a bunch of shallower rocky banks. But I kind of like to stay with a medium-sized line, a 14, and then I'll just use the rod and the reel to kind of manipulate the bait. And you kind of start out experimenting with your retrieves. Some days the fish want it really fast, and some days they want it really slow. This is a 6/8-to-1 team lose reel, and you can even go up to a 7-to-1. And there's times at 7-to-1, that higher speed retrieve, reeling that bait faster will actually draw a strike. That's another way to help keep your bait up out of the rocks, is use a faster gear ratio reel. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but this is a very effective way, just as effective as a crankbait. You can fish these lipless baits. They make them in halves, quarters, 3/4, and you can fish them out to 6-8 foot deep even on these rocky banks. The one thing about this bait, when you pull it through the water, it's running nose down just like this, and it's kind of vibrating to the side. So that right there, that front part of the nose of that bait is kicking off those rocks, and that's what's keeping it from getting hung up. But as you can see, it's kind of got a narrow profile. It's got a real tight action. But this bait fishes real well in shallow water, but it runs kind of nose down just like that, just about at that angle right there. So it'll hit a rock and kick over it and keep going. And that's generally when I've been getting a bite. Nice and fat and healthy. But he swiped at it and missed it, and I hooked him in the side, but look how fat. That fish there's just come up. Look how yellow his eyes are. That's a pretty fish right there. Nice and fat and healthy.